and you've only spent $125,000 to get the best, all of a sudden your company is making more money every month because you are more efficient. You can get more clients. You can produce more things. That's the impact that interim executive management can have on you.
Get ready to build, protect, and sell your expertise online with the Online Genius Podcast. You'll laugh. We hope you won't cry, but you'll always be informed and prepared so you can have the success you want. Here's your host, Bobby Klink.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Online Genius Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Klink, and I am excited for today's show because we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about a skill and something that you're going to need as you grow and scale your business. And specifically, what we're going to be talking about is how you can get access to top-level advisors and talent and the type of people who might seem out of your reach, but do it without having to bring them on and hire them as an employee. So it's an exciting topic. It's a topic that I think everyone needs to learn because as we grow, we're going to need to bring people in who can complement our skill sets. And so it's a topic that I think we're going to learn a lot from. And luckily, you're not going to be listening to me give advice on this because why would you want to listen to a lawyer talk about this? Instead, we've got a great featured guest, and her name is Pam Wasley. And Pam is the co-founder and CEO of, and Pam, I may get this wrong, but I think it's Cerius Executives and Cerius Advisors. And she's a she's a serial entrepreneur with multiple decades of knowledge and experience. She's personally sold companies, led a management buyout. She's advised hundreds of companies on strategies for growth and higher shareholder value. So she is a real expert in this. And she's also served on several private boards and is a highly sought after speaker in this space. And she's been featured in prestigious publications such as Forbes, Entrepreneur, Fortune, and Bloomberg Business Week on topics such as mergers, acquisitions, workforce force of the future, and global contingent workforces. So she is an expert in this space. She would be someone you could bring in as an advisor, but she actually has a business that does that. So with that, welcome to the Online Genius Podcast, Pam.
Thank you, Bobby. I'm honored to be here.
Well, I'm really excited to talk about this subject because I think every entrepreneur needs to learn to outsource, but also to bring in the talent that they need in the spaces where they don't necessarily have the talent. But before I get to that, I always like to ask my guests a little bit about them personally, things that aren't about their business. And when we were talking before the interview, you mentioned to me that you love hiking and being outdoors. And I think you said you went to New Zealand and did an amazing trip there. You know, what is it about hiking and being outdoors that you love so much?
Oh, it's being around nature. I get vibes. I just get a sense of quiet and peacefulness. And my mind actually becomes uncluttered. That's the thing I love about it the most. I actually start to see things around me because if you think about it, I mean, I think about this every time I drive to my office. I'm not sure how I get there every day because my mind is so cluttered with things that I'm not really seeing what's around me. But when I'm out in nature, I see the trees, I see the mountains, I see the bunny rabbits that run in front of me. I see everything. And it's just, I love the feeling. And again, it's that uncluttered mind where you can really see things out there.
Well, Pam, if you could see my desk, you would relate that I definitely need that because my desk is cluttered. I'm sure that you would say that your desk and probably your computer are not great for uncluttering your mind these days.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
And I can relate to your point about driving to work and not knowing how you get there. My office, I'm moving offices shortly, but my office had been about 7 blocks from my house. So I would walk. And then I realized at some point, I really never paid attention to anything along the way. And so I started doing some mindfulness and I would do kind of a walking meditation, which helped. But I think it'd be easier if you were hiking in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell me about, what I would love to go to New Zealand. So tell me about hiking there. What drew you there and kind of what was it like being there?
Well, first of all, part of my family lives in Australia. So we all met up in New Zealand and there's some fantastic place, especially in the South Island, to go hiking. And so we decided to do what's called the Route Burn trek. And it was 3 full days. I mean, totally full days of walking through the glaciers, the mountains, the snow, it was just fantastic. It rained one day, but we were all prepared for this. But it was just fantastic. I mean, the sights, the views were so spectacular. It took my breath away in most cases. So it was just, it was a very, very, very memorable trip. I'd go back there in a nanosecond, but there's other ones that I would probably do instead of the Route Burn. But it's just a fantastic memory of getting out into nature and really enjoying it.
Well, you put something onto my bucket list, that's for sure. Pam, I'm one of those guys. I like to learn from everything I do, and I tend to learn things in one place that I apply elsewhere. And I'm guessing there are lessons you learn from hiking or things you can relate from your hiking and being outdoors that apply to your business. Is that right?
Absolutely. Every Saturday I'm out hiking because I find I actually am more productive. I learn more about my week. My mind is open to all of a sudden to new ideas. I mean, think about it. Okay, so you're out there in nature. You're not thinking about work for a change. You're really just paying attention to things around you. And then you see things, or all of a sudden something hits you and you go, oh my gosh, it's been in front of me. The solution has been in front of me all week. I just couldn't see it because I had so much clutter in my brain. Now that my brain is uncluttered, all of a sudden I got the idea how to fix my issue that I've had all week. So it's made me more productive. It's actually helped me, just unstress. And when you unstress, again, you're more productive, you're more innovative, your life is better. Plus, health-wise, it's a perfect thing to do for your health because you just need that one day of downtime in your life that you can really let go. And that's the place that I let go.
I think it's funny when you were saying that, when you were telling that or talking about how you'll have these great revelations or whatever while you're hiking, it struck me immediately that we all intuitively know that, right? We all know that often if you can't think of something, the best thing to do is stop thinking about it. Stop trying to solve a problem and then a solution will come. So it's interesting that I think we naturally know that, but then we forget it and don't apply it to our lives. So I think that is a great piece of advice for folks to find something where you're just not thinking and unplugged, and it'll probably help you.
Yeah, and stress also causes that. I mean, you're so stressed out over the issues that you're having that you can't think. Your mind stops thinking. So it's better to just get out, relax, and let go. And again, your stress level goes down and you start thinking again.
Well, it's funny. I have something, it's not hiking, but recently I have had some of my best business thoughts, ironically, while I'm sitting in church listening to my pastor talk. And it has nothing to do with what he's talking about, but all of a sudden I'll just think of something. And maybe it's the same thing. I'm just not thinking about it. So,
well, don't tell your pastor that.
Yeah, I won't tell him that I'm daydreaming. But
that's right.
But so it's funny. He actually is a former lawyer, so maybe he would relate. But so, I've enjoyed talking about this, but I do want to turn to the reason I've got you here. And that's to talk about this idea of kind of outsourcing or bringing in top level talent for someone on a part-time basis or something like that. So tell me what gave you the idea to come up with this kind of business model.
Okay, so I have to admit, I stole the idea from Europe. They've been doing it for, 80 years, 90 years. I mean, because of their labor laws over there, they don't necessarily think about hiring someone permanently as a first choice. They think of bringing somebody in on an interim basis over there. So as I was looking to decide what to do with our business. And by the way, we started off as a consulting firm. I hated that whole concept, the whole model. So a year and a half into the business, I started looking at other models and ran across this. And I thought, wow, this is so great. I mean, it really gives people the expertise that they need from a person that's been there and done that and can really very quickly get them up to where they need to be. So I just love the whole idea. Plus, executives like to make an impact. And as a consultant, sometimes you go in and you give great advice, but then you don't get a chance to execute that plan all the time. So somebody else takes it and either puts it on their shelf and leaves it there, or they do it, but they don't do it as well. So then they blame you because your plan didn't work. So it was very frustrating being a consulting firm. So being an interim executive firm, we actually get to go in, help with the planning, and absolutely help with the execution, which then we can be very impactful on and making sure that it happens.
Yeah, so I guess one thing I was wondering when I heard about you in the service is what's the difference, in a sense, between kind of a consultant and this interim executive model? So why don't you kind of tease that out a little bit more so we can kind of really understand what the different models are?
Okay, so like I said, one was the fact that a lot of times they don't get to execute. Another one is when you go as a consultant, you're not really part of the executive team. You're not really working hand in hand with the CEO and the board of directors. You're usually working with somebody at a lower level. And again, they get to make the decisions. You don't get to make the decisions. So again, it's somewhat frustrating. Plus, at the end of the day, these interim executives, what we require them to do and to be, they have to have certain expertise. They have to be very project oriented. They have to be goal focused, which means they have to produce measurable results. And sometimes consultants don't think like that. They really think about more of the plan than they do the end results or the measurable results that you're going to get at the end. And if they do give you measurable results, a lot of times they actually can't get you there. They don't know the path to get you there. They just know how to put together a plan that kind of shows you how to get there, but they've never really done it to get there. These people have been in business. They've had successful careers. They're at the top of their game. They really know how to do it in a very quick period of time. Plus, any interim executive who is good will be able to work in 2 days and get things done in 2 days that a regular executive will take 5 or 6 days. Their focus is different. They're not there, okay, so how do I achieve these goals in the next 90 days? They don't think like that. They think, okay, what can I do the first week I'm there to produce some results at the end of the day or at the end of the week? They just think that way. So, and they hate them. They absolutely hate the maintenance stage. And maintenance stage is when you get to, everything's in place, everything's running smoothly, and then you just have to maintain it. They hate that part because there's no longer can they make that big impact because they've already done it. So that's the time to move on. So the nice thing about that for clients that's when they leave. They don't stay and keep billing you like consultants will continue. They like the billing. Well, these executives, they're not there for the billing. They're there for the impact, and they're there until they find it's really embedded in your company, and then they leave.
So it's hilarious as you were talking about consultants wanting to keep billing. I was thinking, I think it's House of Lies, but there was a Showtime
yes.
show, and it's all about the residual work. It's all about getting the initial to get the residual work. So I was thinking about that and couldn't help myself. But it's funny to me because you mentioned that this is a typical model in Europe. And for my listeners, it's actually a typical model for a lot of online entrepreneurs, but not at the executive level. I mean, they are outsourcing things like they're bringing in a Facebook ads manager, they're not be an employee, but to work on a contract basis. They're bringing in someone to help them with funnels. They're doing all of that. So why is it that this is still such a strange model to apply that to executives?
Because it's at the executive level. They think when you start talking about your team, your direct reports, that, my gosh, I got to own them. I got to know that they're going to be on my side and work with me and get me where I want to go. And, all this stuff that it really isn't true, because what you really want to do is get somebody that plays well with you, that works well with you, but yet has the expertise to get you there quicker instead of hiring a person. Let's just say, I'll give you a good example. So you have a budget at $150,000. You're going to pay whatever, a VP of ops, and you have that budget. Well, can you really get a top-notch VP of operations at $150,000 for your company? Probably not. Can you get one that's, pretty good? Sure. But that person will take twice as long or may not even be able to get you to where you're going because they're not the top person you could have gotten. So using this whole interim executive model, so now you start taking a look at interim executives. And let's just say you take a guy that's $250,000, $300,000, and they're really great. They come in and they start working in your operations. In the first 4 to 6 months, they've saved you $150,000 in cost in your operations, putting in lean processes, your inventory turns are higher, your waste is less. All of a sudden you've started realizing all this money down to your bottom line. Well, okay, he costs, twice as much as the guy you're going to hire. But after 6 months, he saved you, maybe now it's gone up to $200,000 you've saved. Okay, he was a little bit more expensive, but now, because he's put all these processes in place, oh my gosh, you don't need a VP of ops anymore. Maybe you just need a director of operations to take what this person's put into place and maintain it and keep it going. So, all right, so now it's a $150,000 position you were going to bring on, and now it's a $100,000 position for a director. So you've saved $50,000 there. And guess what your cost is for this executive that you just paid for 6 months? The total cost is about $125,000. So you've just saved $250,000. Number one, saving it on, not having to hire a VP of ops now. You hired a director instead. You saved $200,000 and everything that, that went to the bottom line in your operations because it's running more efficiently. And you've only spent $125,000 to get the best. All of a sudden, your company is making more money every month because you are more efficient. You can get more clients. You can produce more things. That's the impact that interim executive management can have on you.
That sounds pretty appealing. So you give me the good side. What's the bad side? What are the problems that people run into in this space, or kind of what are the obstacles that they're going to have to overcome?
Yeah, one of the most important things you have to do when you bring in an interim executive, because you're bringing them in at the higher level, sometimes your executive team is like, I don't know, who's this guy? He's not permanent. He's got the ear of the CEO. I'm not sure about him. So we always guide and advise the CEO to make sure that communication is done. A lot of it's done up front, which means when he's bringing this person in, and it's usually because they're missing some expertise. They have a great executive team, but they're just missing somebody who can do mergers and acquisition. Maybe they're missing somebody who can do great digital marketing. Maybe they're missing somebody who can give them better financial processes. Whatever it is, they're missing that expertise. So we always guide the CEO to tell them, okay, this person is not coming in to replace any of you. They're coming in to help the company and help make it easier for us to grow. So their goal is nothing but growth, not to replace anybody, but really to get us where we need to go quicker. So again, as long as you preface it that way, the stress level, all your executives goes down, because again, they're looking at this high level guy coming in or woman going, geez, am I going to lose my job tomorrow? Is this person going to replace me? So this kind of quiets things down. And because we do so much testing on the leadership and cultural fit for our executives to clients, we make sure that we give them the right match. So they do fit into their culture. They do have the right leadership and team mentality that's needed in the company. But that's a question we always get from our clients about, what's my team going to think? And, is he going to be a good cultural fit to my company? And how do I preface it? I'm going to have, people being, weary about who this guy is. So you just have to make sure that communication is done well up front.
Well, so what I'm hearing you say there is that, and I kind of thought this would be the big obstacle. The big obstacle is going to be that really the entire kind of management team at a company, whether it's a big company, small company, whatever it is, they're going to have to be open and comfortable with the notion of someone else coming in and in a sense be willing to work with them. Is that, I mean, do you run into problems with that where sometimes, one of the clients, it just doesn't work because they're not open to actually the advice they get?
Yeah, I mean, there's some, we vet our clients just like we vet our executives that we work with. So we make sure that the CEO or the board of directors is really going to be open to listening to suggestions, because if they think they can just have somebody come in and do their thing and really bring new ideas and solutions and whatever, and then they go, no, I don't like those. What else you got? If we think that CEO is going to be that type of person, then we don't take the job, because we'll always fail. Because they'll always ask for more and more ideas because, no, I don't like that one. No, we've already tried that. No, let's not do that. That type of person is not one we can be successful with. So that's a big problem.
I think that's all great advice. Another thing that I understand that you have aside from executives, though, is the notion of having an advisory board. And how does that system work for companies?
Oh, entrepreneurs and small companies. Actually, we've had some mid-market companies use this as well. I mean, the cool thing is sometimes you just don't have the answer. You can do Google, you can talk to your mentors, you can talk to your peers, you can talk to your executive team, and you just aren't finding that the answers are what you need. So you're kind of stumped. So this advisory platform is really helpful to businesses today, because literally they can come on, they can put in what question it is that they have or what their issues are, and it'll automatically go out and match the right executives to what issues they're having. They take a look at it and they pick the one that they think they like the resume, the profile of. And in seconds, they can schedule a half an hour, they can schedule a whole hour with this person and talk to them. Maybe they want two opinions. Maybe there's two people they want to talk to, or maybe the first person is great and they want to talk to them once a month. Okay, so I've done this, and this, what we talked about, and now I'm here. So what are we talking about for the next steps? So sometimes they just come back again and again and again every month, or a couple times a month, to make sure that they're on the right track. So it's just having that person again that's really been there, done that. And when I say been there, done that, we have 9,000 executives across the United States and Canada, and they're not old and retired. They are, average age is 46, and these people, they could have retired at an early age because they just have had a successful career, or it could be in the range of 35 to 40. They could have sold their company to Google or Apple. I mean, these people really know the ropes. They know the mistakes that companies make or have in their businesses they're growing, and they can really help. So it's really a great platform and easy. I'm telling you, within seconds, you can be scheduled with somebody, and it can be that same day, it can be the next day. I mean, it's so easy to schedule with these people, and it's very inexpensive. In fact, your first one's free.
It's a wonderful model and an interesting model. It sounds kind of like the notion I've had some entrepreneurs suggest that they would like, in a sense, to have kind of a lawyer on call model where they can, get on the phone with a lawyer just to run things by them. So is it kind of the similar thing, say they, would get, an hour a month where they're just going to do some coaching and working with these people and running ideas by them? Is that generally how people use it?
Yeah, well, they can. We have others that just come and say, okay, so I'm doing things this way. I'm a little scared because I'm not sure it's the right way to do it. Am I doing it correctly? And they say, yep, there's a couple things you need to tweak here and here, and go for it. And that's all they need. So it's various reasons. We've looked at all the questions that people have sent in, and they really vary. Some want it on a more of an advisory board, your virtual advisory board where you have people that you talk to once a month. Then others just have it for questions when they have questions.
So basically you could use it pretty much however you want it. You could use it either to help you with a one-time issue you're trying to work through, or as kind of an ongoing advisory issue to really help you kind of break through to the next level.
Exactly. And sometimes they even take it the next step and go, okay, this has been great advice. Now, and I really don't have time to execute this stuff that we've been talking about. Can you or can someone else come in and help me do it? So it sometimes goes to that, to that level. And either the guy, has the bandwidth to do it, or he sends it over to Cerius and we help match the right executive for him.
And what kind of advisors? Do you have marketing people? Do you have all kinds of different folks there who can kind of help with these advisory platforms?
Every functional area except for legal. So we do have sales, marketing, IT, engineering, HR, operations, finance, and even for somebody who's a first-time CEO, maybe they need a little coaching on how to be the best CEO.
So it sounds like there's a business opportunity there for a legal version of this, but
yes.
So all of this is interesting, and all of it, I think, it is something people need to consider. But I'm betting that some of the listeners maybe are skeptical and have concerns. What are some of the big concerns you hear from people about why they don't do this, why they don't go to a virtual advisor or use an interim executive?
Cost. That's the biggest one, cost. So again, with the example that I just gave you, we try to make sure that they understand the costs. And typically how the costs go, or you're looking at, okay, you're going to pay $150,000 for that person anyway. You fold in all the benefits you were going to pay them, you fold in any bonuses, and then there's a little bit of premium on top of that. So we try to show them that whether they're going to hire a full-time person or whether they hire an interim, it's similar costs. It's a little bit higher, but not terribly. Plus, most of our jobs are part-time, which our clients love. Again, I said an earlier statement that these guys can accomplish in 2 days what most people can accomplish in 5-6 days. So you don't have to have them there 5 days a week. You can have them there a whole lot less and still, get the results that you want at the end of the day. And our company's philosophy is we're not going to put anybody in there that can't achieve measurable results. So, and we put that in our statements of work with our clients that shows them exactly what they're going to get, what the timelines are, and how we're going to get there. So it alleviates the whole cost issue. But cost is the biggest concern they have. Now, the other one is they have to get over their whole thought about, I have to own my executive team. I have to own these people. These have to be employees. Well, again, it's actually better because think about it. Okay, so say you hired a HR director and you've had 3 of these people in the last year or the last 2 years, let's just say, and none of them really fit. They just didn't do the job. So you come to us and say, hey, we want to, use one of your interims. A lot of people do that because especially after they've made so many mistakes, they want to now try before they buy. So they can actually do that. They can have the executive come on board and they give them projects. Okay, so here's what I want to accomplish over the next, 1, 2, 3 months. Let's see how you fit in with my culture, my leadership team. Let's see how we play together. And then, by the end of the 3 months, let's say they're not a fit, but guess what? They've accomplished all those things that you wanted accomplished, but you're not stuck with them at the end of the day. They just go away. Or you really like them, and by Jove, you've just found the person that you wanted to begin with, but you had to make 2 mistakes before that to get there. So that's a real bonus for companies today. It's two. You can hire a finance clerk fairly inexpensively and make a mistake, but don't be hiring a executive and not think that you're going to pay a lot in bonuses and lost revenues and all sorts of things. I mean, it's very, very costly to lose an executive if you make a mistake.
So I had a couple of thoughts as you were kind of giving that answer. Number one, I have a quick question. So if they're working part-time, do the executives work part-time for you and then part-time for another company simultaneously, or would they be dedicated just to you?
No, they could have two jobs. They could have one where they're working 3 days a week and the other one 2 days a week. And these people, they really know how to do that. And by the way, let's say Monday and Tuesday at client A and Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at client B. Mm-hmm. And client A has a question. They got something that's going on and they need to talk to this executive, but oh my gosh, it's Wednesday. Somebody else's, time with the executive. They just call them. Executive will pick up the phone, he'll answer his question, and then he gets back to client B. So, and same thing, you can have that client at B has a question on Monday and Tuesday, and they need the executive, so they pick up the phone, and they call. So these people are always available to them, and it can be even on the weekends. So they don't have to worry about, I only have 2 days access, because they have access to them more than that. They just have them at their facility those 2 days.
Well, the other thought I was thinking is, I would imagine that, so the price, is going to scare a lot of people away, but I would imagine that the kind of virtual advisory board is a way for people to get things that get some advice that's a lot cheaper than what you're talking about to get yourself a kind of, to get an actual interim executive.
It is, but you won't have anybody execute it for you. And right. Entrepreneurs are the worst. And I'm only saying this from my point of view because I am an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur, actually. And one of the hardest things for us to do is delegate and to, release it to somebody else. So, it's actually good for them to, take a look at this model, because it gets a lot of stuff off their plates. They really can get so much further. Plus, think about it. You don't want to delegate it because it's somebody that, you think you can do it better. Well, when you're talking to these executives, you're going to find that they can really make a difference. So you just tell them what you need done and they get it done for you. Boy, that's what a relief to an entrepreneur today, knowing that they don't have to worry about that piece anymore. And that's something that can come off of their plate fairly easily. So a lot of entrepreneurs do like that more than just the advice. They want somebody to come in and help them execute.
I think this is all great advice. And I think, entrepreneurs at some point need to learn to let go. One of the questions I like to think is, I'm a very analytical guy. So I like to do a lot of research and read up and see resources. So is there a book or some kind of resource that you would recommend to people that can help them kind of understand this model and think through the pros and cons before they commit?
Well, there's actually a couple avenues where they can get this information. First of all, we wrote a book called How I Fired My Boss and Made More Money. We actually wrote it for our executives. A lot of small companies are reading it as well, because this is for executives who are just starting off as an interim executive in their own practice, in their own business. But, the same thing about, how do I get business? How do I price my product or service? How do I market? How do I keep clients? What kind of contracts do I need? This actually pertains to small businesses as well. So that's one resource. Other resources are, we do a lot of writing at Cerius. So in fact, we write and we post new content 7 days a week, because we are big on digital marketing. So whether it's SEO, whether it's AdWords, whether it's email campaigns, whether it's LinkedIn, whatever our digital source is that we're putting content out on, we put it out 7 days a week. That's how most people learn about interim executive management, because they read our blogs, they read all this content that's out there, and they go, oh, because one of the things that we've learned to do when we do write is we put lots of case studies. So we give them examples, and a lot of times the example resonates for where they are. So they understand that we realize what their issues are and can really help them.
And so where can listeners find that information if they're interested in learning more?
Okay, so they can go to, and since we're very serious about our business, as our name says, however, it's spelled Cerius. So if you go to getcerius.com/online genius, we're actually going to give all of your listeners, Bobby, some gifts. You can download our book for free. You can download a ton of articles about how to have better revenue, how to hire the best talent, how to drop more profit to your bottom line. I mean, ton of information is on there, and they can download all of it if they want to. But it's getcerius.com/online genius.
That's a wonderful resource, and thank you for providing that for listeners. You have given some great advice, Pam. One question, though, I do like to ask all of my guests is if there was something that listeners could do, say in 5 minutes or a day, or something that they could get done by the end of this week. So in other words, something that's very kind of, a digestible chunk of something they can do to improve their businesses, what would you recommend they do?
Yeah, a really simple thing is, and again, entrepreneurs, small businesses, we all have trouble with time. Been there, done that, and found here's the solution. Every night before I go to bed, or sometime when I leave the office, before I leave the office, I make a checklist of what I have to do the next day. Because by then you're leaving your computer, so you're not going to get any more emails of things to do. So that's the opportunity to write it. But write up at least the top 3 priorities that you have. You can put more on that list if you want, but they won't be priorities. The first 3 items are your big 3 priorities. The next day when you get up and you go into your office, sure, you're going to get pounded by all these demands and things that are going on. But those 3 priorities, because I wrote them down and they're stuck on my monitor, I get them done every day. And I tell you what, it moves me forward. As you move the needle, it doesn't matter how small. If you're moving the needle every day, you're making progress and your company is growing. But if you're like most entrepreneurs out there, literally you come in and, oh my gosh, all heck is going on, and you get caught up in it, and you get to the end of the day and go, I have not a clue what I did today. So don't let that happen to you, and get that checklist done and abide by it every day. Get at least those 3 things done every day.
Pam, I think that's great advice. And it's funny how a lot of these, a lot of smart people seem to have the same general advice. And I don't know about you, but I use Michael Hyatt's Full Focus Planner, and he has the same general advice. He says, you pick your big 3 for every day. So you can have another to-do list of other things that you'd like to get done, but you have 3 things that you should get done every day. So I love that you echoed that. And I love the advice of setting them up the day before. Don't wait till the next day and set them up. Know today what your big 3 are for tomorrow. So that is fantastic advice.
Yeah, if you wait to the day of, you're going to get compounded with all these other things that are going on, and you'll never make that list.
Well, yeah. And the problem is maybe you check your email, and so you have all these other problems. So I think that's fantastic advice. Now, Pam, you've given some great advice, and I thank you for the link you already gave. Where else could listeners get in touch with you if they want to either follow you on social or get other information from you?
Yeah, I'm actually on Twitter. Pamela Wasley is my handle. And you can find me at LinkedIn. If you're interested in talking further, you can go to LinkedIn and link to me there. Or you actually can send me an email. Just send it to info@ceriusinterim.com. Not Cerius Executives, but Cerius Interim. So info@ceriusinterim.com. And those come directly to me because I get the questions, and I'll be sure to get back to you.
Well, thank you very much, Pam. It has been my pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, Bobby. I really appreciate it, and I've had a great time.
And listeners, that's it for now, but stay tuned for my quick legal lesson after the break.
And now for today's legal lesson.
Yay! Hey, Pam's service is really interesting, and it provides a really great way for you to kind of grow and bring in some experts in your field or outside of your area of expertise to really help you, which I think that's something that entrepreneurs are bad at, but we need to get better at. Too many of us try to do everything ourselves. We try to be our chief tech person, our chief salesman, our chief everything, and that's just not a good place to be because we can't be experts in all of it. We just can't, and we need to accept that and get help from people. Now, I wanted to take this episode and this legal lesson as a chance to kind of broaden out because, again, if you worked with Pam or one of those services, they're probably going to have contracts, hopefully, that are going to have all of this. But I want to take this chance to make the point that anytime you are working with anyone, you need to have a written agreement with them. Now, if you listen to me for very long, you're going to hear me say that you need written agreements all over the place. And with workers of any kind, it is especially important. Whether it's an employee or an independent contractor, you need to have a written agreement that sets out the rules of the game. Now, this is not an issue of something where I'm talking about employment law. Employment law doesn't require you to have a contract. There's no requirement of it generally. And that's not what I have in mind. And I'm not going to advise you to necessarily put in kind of a big fulsome employment contract with employees. But you do need to have certain things in writing from the people you work with. And the reason why is these are places where businesses get tripped up if they don't. So I want to walk through what it is. And this should apply to an employee or an independent contractor that you work with. First, with anyone who is going to have access to any kind of proprietary information or confidential information, or maybe even just maybe confidential, you're not even sure, you should have them sign a confidentiality agreement. And that agreement should be a condition of their employment or them getting a contract as an independent contractor. Basically, what that agreement will say is that they are not allowed to use any confidential information they learn from working with you or while working with you for any purpose other than to advance your business. In other words, they can't take your customer list with them when they leave and use it to start a competing business. If you have a proprietary way of doing something within your business, they can't take that with them when they leave and use it to compete with you. So again, that is the point of a confidentiality agreement. And that's a key agreement that a lot of people don't get in place. And if you don't get it in place, these workers can take your hard-earned, confidential information that you have spent your time, money, and effort to build up, and they can then take that and use it against you to compete or go work for someone else who's already competing with you and give them that information. So you want to make sure that doesn't happen. So that's the first piece. The second piece, you need to have what's called an intellectual property transfer agreement. This is an issue that very few people realize. And outside of very specific areas, I think a lot of people have a sense that, they need it if they're hiring someone to do, to create music for them or something like that. Some creatives will have this, but every business needs to think about this. Your intellectual property rights need to be crystal clear. And if you think about it, all kinds of different people are helping you create those. So maybe you have a designer who's helping you create a logo or other things like that. Maybe you have a copywriter who's helping you create slogans. Maybe you have a copywriter or a writer who's just writing content for your blog. Now, is there some chance that you would own that without having to have a written agreement in place? Sure, there is. But having a written agreement makes it clear and avoids any doubt. And so what you're going to want to do is have an agreement in place that they sign at the very outset that's going to prospectively give you the rights to all of that stuff. And that's called an intellectual property transfer agreement. And if you don't have those agreements in place, what can happen is you may find out 5 years down the line that there's a dispute about whether you own it or not. And that's not the time you want to have to go find these people in the first place and then try to get them to sign this agreement. You want to do it as part of their employment and as a condition of their employment. So that's the second piece you need. Now, the third piece strikes a lot of people as crazy when I tell them, but trust me when I tell you, I've seen a lot of disputes about this. You want to have something in the written agreement that makes clear that they're not an owner or a partial owner of the business. This issue comes up more than you would believe. People who one side says, no, you were an employee, and the other says, no, I'm an owner. And there's a dispute about it. And it's because they were working with you and maybe there was something that was said that they interpreted wrong, or maybe, who knows what the deal is. But I see these issues come up repeatedly for entrepreneurs and small businesses. So you don't want to find yourself in those shoes. Now, with an independent contractor, it's pretty easy. You say you're an independent contractor. And if you say that, that's generally going to be good enough. For an employee, you can do it in other subtle ways. I don't, for example, put something in agreement that says you are not an owner or something like that. Instead, I propose that people use an offer letter to employees that sets out, hey, here's your job, here's what you're going to get paid. And then you have a section where you maybe talk about benefits. And in that, you say, for example, at this time, the company does not offer any profit sharing or equity sharing. So you will not receive any ownership interest as a result of your employment. So you get that in place, and that protects the issue as well. So that's a quick rundown of the written agreements, the kind of 3 core agreements that you need to have with every individual you work with in your business. First, you need a confidentiality agreement or confidentiality clause within another agreement. Second, you need an intellectual property transfer agreement, again, or a clause in a bigger agreement. And finally, you need something making clear they don't own any piece of the business. If you get those in place, you will be safe in knowing that your employees will and contractors can work for you without putting your business at risk. That's it for this show. Got another great episode coming next week, so I hope you'll be around for that. Again, if you're liking the show, please subscribe, give it a rating and review on iTunes, and share it with other people to get them the same information so they can start protecting their business as well. That's it for today. Bobby Klink signing off.
Thanks for listening. And remember to visit mistakes.youronlinegenius.com to get your essential guide to the 4 legal mistakes that can doom your business and how to avoid them. Join us next week for another episode to expand your online genius and your success.